Hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Larry.
Welcome to Menopause,
A podcast dedicated to men over 50.
brought to you by Menopause.com.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Menopause.com Menopod podcast. I'm Larry. That's Mike. And our special guest today is Dr. Jed Diamond. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of him already, but I'm going to give you a little bio anyways. He began really the whole male mental health movement back in 1968 with MenAlive. It was a program that was dedicated to men's health. He has a master's degree in social work and a PhD in international health. He's written a ton of best-selling books on men's mental health and relationships, including the irritable male syndrome, which we can all identify with, surviving male menopause, and MenAlive, Stop Killer Stress with Simple Energy Healing Tools. He's also been on pretty much every talk show you can imagine, so that's why I think you've probably seen him. So welcome, Dr. Diamond. Nice to have you here.
It's great to be with you. Thank you.
Boy, do we have a lot of questions for you. Now, do you prefer being called Dr. Diamond or Jed, or how do we refer to you?
Whatever feels good to you. I go by all of those things.
I feel very comfortable calling you Jed because you're just a cool guy. And I just think that I call Larry Larry. Sometimes he asks me to call him Dr. Pollock. But anyway, so, we have a lot of questions. And one of my questions, and Larry and I had talked about this previous, and one of the reasons we started this website and the podcast is because we're well over 50. And we were experiencing a lot of kind of crazy things as we were getting older and noticing weird things with our friends and family members and just how they're reacting to us and how they're acting out there. Some of my friends, some of Larry's friends were acting a little strange, like leaving their wives. After a stable marriage of maybe 30 years, they decide to take off and go with a younger woman and have a child. Wow, second life, right? Why do they do that? That's one of the questions. Why do they wear toupees? And Larry, you had yours on yesterday, and it looked pretty good. It was looking at.
It's too hot right now. Yeah,
they're doing crazy things, right? Dressing weird, buying the red Corvettes, and all of that kind of stuff. So why do we do this? What's the answer?
Yeah, well, let me just tell you a little bit of background and how I got interested in those things. And yeah, I'll be honest, I never had much interest in hormonal changes, except when I was an adolescent, and then I couldn't help it. But as you point out, I've been involved in men's health for quite a long time. And what I found was that my wife was going through some changes as she started getting into midlife, and that concerned me. She had sexual issues and not as responsive and just not as nice and friendly. And so I started building up this list of things that were wrong with her, until she kind of turned it on me and she said, a lot of those things you're talking about, I see in you. And of course, like, no way. But I was starting to recognize that a lot of the things you were experiencing and talking about, some of the extreme things weren't true for me. I wasn't getting a Corvette. I wasn't planning to leave my wife. But there were emotional changes. There were sexual changes. And because I'm a writer, as you point out, whenever there's an area that I thought maybe would be of interest to others, or maybe I needed to sort out something myself, I went looking. And so that was when I began doing research that ended up in the book called Male Menopause, which was, you point out, what the first book that took these things seriously. And I began to really look much more deeply into what's going on here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, obviously, I think, just like any disorder, there are lots of people who maybe don't suffer from it for whatever reason. There are people who suffer from it and realize they're suffering from it. And the worst group is the one who are suffering from it and don't realize they're suffering from it and don't understand what's going on. And I think those are the ones that the kind of work that you do probably they're the most important target, I would hope.
Well, the targets go across the line because the work that I do, although I'm a clinician, and most of the people that come when they're really in extreme trouble, they're depressed, they may be suicidal, they may be, going through a change where they're thinking of leaving their marriage, or they're starting to get interested in, somebody else, or the desire is flagging at home, the erections are not as strong, and so on. All of which, are symptoms and signs. But it really goes across the board, because here's the deal. This is what I found out. It's probably as crucial as anything that I came across, which is that everybody goes through this. This is not a disease. This is not something that happens to a few people. The way I think about it is, ask yourself, have you been through puberty any time in your life? Or did you skip that?
Right.
There isn't anybody that says, "Oh, no, I never had that." Well, here's what I discovered is that male menopause or menopause really is as common as puberty. We all go through it. And as you point out, we have different reactions. Some are minor, some are more serious, some change, they're individual, but nobody gets through this stage of life without going through this kind of change.
Wow. You brought up something a week ago when we were talking prior to this podcast, and you brought up something that kind of shook me up, and I started paying attention to it. And I realized, wow, I actually am going through this. So you mentioned that when men hit 50 and they start, getting older, they start getting depressed, they get angry, things change. And the anger thing, I caught myself just in this last week saying, why am I so angry?
I ask you that all the time, actually.
I know. Well, just you, but I'm an even keel guy. I like to laugh a lot. I tell jokes. Always a good time. And when I drink, if I drink, I'm always the happy, drunk, right? I don't never get angry. But now I'm finding myself getting angry, and life's good. I don't know why. Why am I getting angry? So I know that's, our listeners and people who join us probably are going through the same thing. And what is it?
Well, there's a couple of things that are going on. They've actually done a number of worldwide studies that look at happiness and well-being at various ages. So they look, at happiness when you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and, all the way through life. And here's what they find is that there is a U-shaped curve that we're happiest when we're younger. And then as we hit midlife, the bottom of the U, where we're the least happy, so that translates as more depressed, more irritable, more angry, more frustrated, is, they've actually pinpointed countries all over the world, somewhere between 47 and 52. It's real specific. Mm-hmm. And then if you get happier, you get more, relaxed as you get older. Now that's got something to do with hormones. It's got something to do with the fact that half our lives are over and we're dealing with the realities of death and dying, or just the realities that you talk about where we're not feeling as able as we were. Children are growing up, leaving home. The partner we may be with is like, we're confronted with, now that, work is less demanding, the kids
right.
are less present, what's going on with us? So these are some of the things that really are universal, in addition to the universal reality that there are hormonal changes that impact all aspects of our lives, physical, sexual, emotional, spiritual, all of those things are going on at this time.
Yeah. Just on that, just to take that a little further, what do we do about it? I mean, how do you stop yourself?
Well, there's again the analogy to puberty. I think is an apt one. So you're not going to not go through it, but here's the deal. A lot of this is attitude and understanding.
Right.
So many of us grew up in the society as a whole. If you look at everything we see on TV and the movies, generally the view is that as we get older and we get more gray hairs or we lose our hair or we go through these kind of physical changes, that it's kind of like life is going downhill.
Right.
It's like this is the beginning of the end. And even though you don't say that, you feel that way. So the truth is, and again, this is what I discovered, is that rather than this change of life being the beginning of the end, it's actually the end of the beginning. And what I mean by that is I say that, in a sense, puberty is a transition from childhood to adulthood. That's what its purpose is, to bring us from being a child to being an adult. Well, I call this change of life super adulthood. The idea is to make the shift from the first part of adulthood to the second part of adulthood. And the second part, what I call super adulthood, rather than it being a downer, it really is the entree into the most passionate, the most purposeful, the most engaging and joyful part of a life that any of us have experienced. It's here's the kicker, and I'll end with this little piece here, that for most of human history, we never had this part of life. We died when we were 40 or 50.
Right.
Now we've got a whole nother life ahead of us. And if we understand what we're going through, if we can make these shifts, this really is the best that's ever been.
Hello there, I'm John O'Hurley. Do you have FOMO, fear of missing out? Well, I did, and it frightened me. But no more, because I found Menopause.com, the site for men over 50. You'll never miss out again. Menopause.com is overflowing with articles, videos, and podcasts about sex, travel, sports, entertainment, health, and so much more. Menopause.com.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, it sounds, a lot of us got through puberty with masturbation, so we may want to bring that back in these older years. But
we know about you, Larry. We know all about you.
But the bigger question that I'm asking is, again, like any disease state, or I see this in my post-surgical patients. Some people, with the same operation, no pain pills, they feel great, good attitude. Other people are on pain pills for 2 weeks. And so I think it correlating with this, some people get through these menopausal years, or at least the transition, sort of shrugging it off and saying, hey, I know what's going on and I'm okay. And other people, it's like hitting a brick wall. I mean, right. And so going to the underlying, because I know you do a lot of analysis in terms of people's earlier life experiences. But you see people who, a lot of celebrities recently have been dying in their 90s, who led really fulfilling, great lives, always relevant, always staying happy and on it and everything. Is any of this related to perhaps losing your passion in life, or never finding that true passion? I mean, there must be underlying reasons why one person gets through this in a relatively reasonable way, and somebody else, you got to throw them a lifeline.
Well, exactly right. Everybody is different, and here's what I've discovered is the core thing that really determines what life's going to look like. The first thing that I'd be honest with people to say is that where you are at midlife and how you come through it. So we're all going to go through it. The question is, how are you going to be as you come through this period, this transition, this super adulthood? That's an opportunity. It's not a given. It's not like everybody's going to have a wonderful second half of life. What determines really whether you're going to have a good one or you're not is how much attention you pay to creating the second part of life that you really want to have. So in the work that I do with people, I say that there's 3 offerings that I engage you with at this time of life. The first is you ask and answer this question: am I living the most authentic life that I can live? So that gets into what you were saying. It's asking, am I really being the best me I could be? Because so many of us in early life, we either did what we were supposed to do. We were nice boys. I was one of those guys. I just did everything that, my parents told me. Everybody thought I was a great kid. So you either do that or you do the opposite. You're the rebellious one. You do, the opposite of but you're not necessarily doing your life. So midlife in this menopause passage really is the opportunity to ask yourself, am I being my authentic self? So that's number one. The second question I think we need to ask and answer is, am I loving deeply and well? And that involves, am I able to love myself deeply and well? Am I able to have a relationship that really is deeply engaging and loving? Am I able to love my family, my children, and by extension, humanity? The third thing I ask is, it touches again what you're getting at, is did I do my life in a way that I can say I made a difference in the world? I really did something worthwhile. I didn't just make money. I didn't just do, my thing. I didn't become rich and famous or whatever you did. But when you look back at your life, will it really be something you could say, I made a mark, I made the world a little better place in the way that I could? Doesn't mean you have to be, a great this but every one of us has a calling. And this time of life is asking us to answer that call.
And it's never too late to do that. Like, for instance, if you were a workaholic and you just worked and you were a little selfish with your time on the weekends and didn't spend a lot of time with your kids or whatever, or didn't give back to the world. Now, maybe at this point in your life, it is time to give back. You can still do those things. Like Larry and I go to Uganda and we do all kinds of different. And so it's really fulfilling right now to do that. And I highly recommend it for people because it gives them, something else to look forward to in life that is not about them. It is about other people and doing good. So yeah, that's right on the money on that.
So the question for our audience would be, obviously anybody who watches this, who's going through it, is already, based on what you've been saying, going to get insight. And of course, we'll talk a little bit later about the courses that you offer that they can go to get even more in-depth into how to deal with this. But let's pull out of that and say, okay, somebody like me or Mike or some of our other friends who are not experts like you are, how do we recognize that in a friend or an acquaintance that, this person would benefit from something to get them out of the doldrums or to get their life back together? What kind of tools can we have to recognize that and maybe kind of help push them in the right direction to get the kind of help that you offer?
I think the key thing is engagement, connection. Because here's the difference between men and women as they age. We can, as guys, we look at the women of our age, and we go, well, women can no longer have children. So that door it gets closed for them. Guys, as we know, can still have children later in life. So that's one of the differences. But a significant difference between men and women as we get older is women keep the friendships that they've made over the years. As a group, we vary individually, but generally women keep the friendships that they've had, the relationships that they've developed. Or if they, have lost relationships, they make new ones. Where guys have a tendency to be busy at work, be doing our thing, but our relationships tend to go by the wayside. Yeah. We look back and we lose connection with buddies we may have had. So the key that I find that opens up the doors to all the other things is reconnecting with friendships, developing new friendships, joining an organization that speaks to these specifically. That's why I've been in a men's group that's been meeting now for, listen to this, 42 years.
Wow.
42 years. My wife says that one of the reasons we've had a really wonderful 41-year marriage is that I've been in a men's group for 42 years. And part of that, it's we laugh about it, but the reason that so many midlife men start going downhill is loneliness. Mm-hmm. They just don't stay connected and they don't develop new connections. So that then opens the door to all these other things. If you're not connected, and that can start anywhere. Hey, let's go out and have a cup of coffee. Let's go have a drink together. Mm-hmm. And reaching out to those guys that may look really fine on the surface, but you get to know them and say, who are you close to? Who do you connect with? And they may say, only my wife or only my partner. And they don't have deep male friends. And that's the tragedy if it remains. It's the opportunity if we can reconnect.
Wow, that's interesting.
And men also, Mike and I have found this when we have a long-term friendship, so we kind of tell each other most things. But there's a lot of guys, and we were raised the same way, who were raised in the era when men were strong, and you don't tell anybody any weakness. You don't expose any weakness, whether it's in your business or in your personal life. Everything's hunky dory. I'll have another drink now because everything's great. And so again, we've tried to, through menopause, and I know you do that, is trying to get guys to let some of that out, because carrying that around is stressful and again, I think leads to alcoholism and depression and possibly suicide. So again, I know you teach this, but just in a nutshell, in addition to men's group, what other ways can you get men to start opening up, even to their wives? A lot of men don't want to open up to their wives because they don't want to show weakness to their wives, even though our experience has been that women want to hear that. They want to hear that so they can help.
Well, there are two things about it. One is that women often will say they want to hear how we feel. Please open up. But many women, because of their background, when they say, please open up, please tell me how you feel, what they mean is tell me how much you love me. Tell me all the good feelings that you have towards me, or tell me how happy you are. But what I found in my own life, and I think many men feel this way, is sometimes what we're actually feeling is pretty raw, irritable, angry. You really want to know how goddamn angry I am, or frustrated, or hurt, or depressed about the state of the world, and so sometimes we go on these rants about the state of the world or the politics or this and that, when really we need to be able to just say, inside, man, I'm really feeling some negative things. And as you point out, many of us, maybe most of us, have been raised to hang together with ourselves, to not admit weakness, to not talk about the feelings that we may have, because it makes us feel inadequate. We feel like we should have it all together. So part of it is just making it okay to feel, making it okay that men have feelings, that when we can practice opening ourselves up, it really is the entree to this whole nother world. Because what else are you going to do with your life at the second half if you're not going to feel, if you're not going to be able to connect in a deep way with someone. So find someone. It can start with your wife. It can start with a friend. It can start with, just making the decision that says, I'm not going to let my life be that negative. And for many of us, we grew up with a negative image. My father, when he hit midlife, he got very depressed and withdrawn. Many of us grew up with absent fathers, or fathers who, were workaholic or alcoholic or in some ways disconnected. So many of us don't have good role models for male, relationship or male aging.
Mm-hmm. I find myself at work always questioning, am I still relevant? These young guys are coming up and young women are coming up, and they're smarter and they're more energetic, and they've got, these great ideas and everything. And how am I going to compete with this? They know how to use the computers, and they know the software, and they know all of this stuff. And you're constantly struggling. And then you find yourself sitting around going, God, what am I going to do here? Are they going to try to get me out? Right? So how do you deal with that part of it? Because I know a lot of men that go through it.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a reality that we live in our society. And the reality is in our particularly Western cultures, people that grew up in Eastern cultures where eldering is seen as a positive, where in China or Japan, the older person with lots of life experience are viewed as national treasures. Here we're viewed as irrelevant and over the hill, and if you can't do what you used to do, you're no longer useful. And so there's some reality to the feeling that the young people are coming to take our jobs or to replace us, and there isn't a place for us. And so part of what I had to learn is that we need support to deal with that reality, not to deny it, not to say, suck it up, it's not going to happen, but to say, hey, man, I'm working in a place where the young guys and the young women, isn't just guys anymore. Women are, in the workplace, they're taking over jobs. And in many instances, the kind of jobs and the kind of work that is most relevant to this age is the kind of experience that often women have more than men. We maybe grew up strong, physical, we could do stuff with our hands, but now we're being asked to develop relationship skills. Those are the skills that are most relevant. Mm-hmm. So we have to reskill. We have to, repractice, and that takes support. We just don't do that very well on our own. So it really gets back to, making those relationships, having guys you can really talk to, like you guys are talking, and developed and have maintained friendships. Not everybody does that, but everybody can.
Hey everybody, Larry and Mike here to tell you about a new product that we're going to be featuring on Menopause.com. It's called Mano Hemp Relief.
Oh yeah.
It is an amazing pain reliever that has 2,500 milligrams of cannabidiol. And
wait a minute,
what?
cannabidiol?
Cannabidiol.
What is cannabidiol?
It's made from hemp.
Whoa.
And it has no THC, so you don't have to worry about hallucinations and stuff like that. But it has been proven in studies to relieve muscle and joint pain. I've used it on my neck after surgeries, and by the next morning, I'm feeling great. And I know Mike's been using it because he's the one that turned me on to this stuff.
It's awesome. It really, really, really works. That's why we wanted to bring it to you, the Menopause.com audience, and just say, you know what, guys, this is it. This is the one. Try it. You will love it, and it does actually work, and work well. And instantly, I mean, within a few minutes, you start feeling the relief right away. And so I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, so it's safe and effective and reasonably priced. So go to Menopause.com, go to the shop, check it out. We know you're going to like it. Yeah, one of the things we push on Menopause is the idea of living life. As our motto is live life, live young. And I think almost everybody, I know Mike and I did, and maybe they're a little cliche, but our passions when we were younger had to do with the entertainment business. You know, Mike was an actor and for reasons had to go a different direction. I wanted to be a screenwriter, and the same thing happened. And so as you get older, one of the things we've been pushing is the concept of go back and think of yourself as a young person going to college or in high school, wondering what you were going to do with your life, and try to find out what it was that was driving you. I mean, obviously some people haven't realized that yet and don't have an idea of what they want to do. But a lot of people maybe were like, God, I just want to work on cars and do this and that. And their parents didn't let them. They had to go to college and become an accountant or something, right? And so we try to push people to go back, think about that, and then do it. Obviously, Mike's not going to star in a blockbuster movie or anything, but we're getting back into a business.
Oh, what do you mean? I was planning on that.
Yeah, well, porn movies generally don't go very far, but the idea is that we're back into a field that's creative, that's related to what we wanted to do. Yep. And so we try to encourage people, and that's why we have a forum as well, to talk about what it is. I mean, if you wanted to be, say, a forest ranger, well, maybe you're too old to be a forest ranger, but you can be a guide on some of these trails and all that kind of stuff. So that's the philosophy that I think goes along with what you're teaching too, to try and get people, get back to your roots and figure out what gives you energy and passion.
Yep. One of the things I do in my groups, I often will ask people to reflect back to the time of your life. Often it's between sometime 9 and 11. It's the way I describe it. It's you're at the peak of childhood, but before adolescence, before puberty, before the sexual stuff, and before the what are you going to do when you grow up. But often you take people back to, when they're 10 years old and say, what did you want to do then? What were some of your dreams? What were some of and sometimes they're outrageous. I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be, but you're right that often it's the very pure, passionate desire to create in the world when there were no obstacles, when you weren't diverted. And often I've worked with a lot of my clients that when you start getting the core of what that was, it can turn into something very real. Yes, I actually could do that. Mm-hmm. It isn't too late to, become whatever, starting a guy I worked with just the other day who, had gone into banking very young, very successful, because, that's what but when he thought back about what he really had passion for when he was 10 years old, it was to be a forest ranger. He wanted to be outdoors. And so again, he found, okay, there's ways to translate that into, could be a volunteer thing. It could be all kinds of things. But if you don't grab a hold of, what's passionate for you, life has a way of saying, if you're not engaged, then you're going to become more depressed. You're going to be, put on weight. You're going to be drinking more. You're basically, just hanging on, hoping that somehow something will change.
Right.
But getting back to the passion is the opening that takes people to the next stage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What about changing yourself? We spoke last week about the plastic surgery and not being able to look at yourself in the mirror anymore because what you think, you're that 30-year-old guy and you walk past the mirror and you feel like you look like an old man. Is plastic surgery for men okay, or is it?
Careful now.
Asking something. No, because I plan on doing it. I'll be honest. I plan on doing maybe the eyes and maybe this a little bit. And I don't want to change my looks completely, but I do want to look kind of rested and a little bit more youthful, because I do speak in front of people and I'm on camera a lot, but I just want to do it for me. I don't care about anybody else. I just want to do it for me. But what do you think? I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, I think there's the key is, as I said, that being the authentic you, whatever that is, and we all, want to look good. We all want to feel good. We all want to feel engaged with life. And, women have been doing cosmetic things all their lives. Guys have tended not to. We don't wear cologne. And now we're learning in all different ways that, it's okay to, be nice looking. It's okay to do any of those things you described.
Mm-hmm.
The key is, though, here's the key to that. Some people, women and men, go into making modifications, surgically or otherwise, in order to please somebody else, to look better for somebody else,
Right.
to do it for somebody else. And it's a never-ending cycle because, the older, if you're going to be alive, you're going to get older looking, and
Right.
how many facelifts, can you do? And we've all seen, stars and people in the industry who, feel they need to do that in order to, to work or in order to keep getting good jobs. But the key is, I think, to whatever you do, and I have no qualms with anybody doing whatever part of making themselves feel good that they want to, but don't replace the fact of doing the other things that take care of yourself.
Right.
You don't just want to look like your eyes aren't saggy. You want to get a good night's sleep every night. You
Right.
don't want to just look like your skin is tight and you're looking healthy. You want to actually be healthy. So
Good point.
all of those things need to be balanced in what we do cosmetically or otherwise, but what we're doing inside, what we're doing in our broadly defined well-being.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and being a plastic surgeon, I can tell you that there are circumstances where we have to play psychologist, and a lot of it has to do with the wives of the men that we're talking about who get dumped when they're in their 50s or early 60s. And I see a lot of them come in while they're getting divorced or right after the divorce, who now want a facelift because they have to get back out on the market. And I almost always tell them to wait a minimum of 6 months to make sure that they're doing it for the right reason and not because this outside influence has made them feel ugly or not valuable anymore and stuff like that. So that's one aspect. And then for men, there are men who have sort of borderline personalities that if their lives didn't turn out the way they wanted them to, will choose a physical problem as the root cause of those, unrequited dreams, and the typical one we talked about once before is rhinoplasty. Very often there have been plastic surgeons killed by male rhinoplasty patients who, after they had the procedure done, their lives didn't change. And they had put psychologically everything into the nose. Once this is fixed, my life's going to be great. And of course, it didn't change because that was not the problem.
Right.
So, it's a good point. I do want to take a little turn here because we do want to get to your seminars and courses. But for now, let's say, as an introduction to what you teach and what you do, which of your books right now would you say is the best primer for somebody to read to kind of get into the flow of what you do and then be ready to take your course?
Well, like everything else, it depends where you are and what you need. People, particularly men, but not just men, we're very pragmatic generally. We don't read a book just to read a book. So what I find is people find me in a number of ways. The simplest way that people come to me is they come to my website, MenAlive.com, and what they find there is articles on relationships, articles on health, articles on the state of the world, articles that, are little tastes of what you might want to learn about. For the book that I did on male menopause, I developed a questionnaire that people can take. It's very popular, that helps you assess what degree of irritability you might have. I call it the irritable male syndrome quiz. And probably literally 60,000 people have come to our website and taken the quiz that helps them see, well, is this just a little bit irritability? Is it more serious? So that's another way. And the books that people usually find me by and find most engaging, one is called The Enlightened Marriage, and I'm teaching a course on the 5 stages of love and why too many relationships get stuck at stage 3. Because at every age, but particularly at midlife, people are asking the questions about their present relationship. If they're not in a relationship, am I going to get back out there? And how do I keep from making the same mistakes? So the 5 stages of love and The Enlightened Marriage is one. And then my most recent book is called 12 Rules for Good Men. And it's really what I have put together over the years that was really inspired by my wife. She said, I told her after The Enlightened Marriage, I thought I would maybe not write any more books. That was my 15th book. And she said, you need to write at least one more book because there's so much confusion and conflict between men. What does it mean to be a good man? Men are put down, they're vilified, they're, women are, they take power, they don't want to be harassed. And, all of that's really good, but it leaves many men feeling, so where am I? What can I do? And so she challenged me to write a book that would really recognize the kind of armoring and the kind of disconnections that men are forced into, and to really give men guidance for what you really can do in this next part of your life. So 12 Rules for Good Men would be another one. And then if those don't tickle your fancy, then you can check with the other 14 that I've written.
And these are all available on Amazon, correct?
They are.
Yeah. So then tell us a little bit about your upcoming courses and how people can sign up for that. You have that one you're talking about, navigating the 5 stages of love. How can people get in on that?
Well, there's a couple of ways. I sent you the link to that. It's a course that starts on February 15th. So it's all around love, Valentine's Day, and so on. And it's a very self-guided course. It would be what I would teach my clients who come to me, for therapy. But here you get to do it on your own. You get a free copy of the book, The Enlightened Marriage. You get guided little practices that go on for a period of 28 days that you get. And we ask people just put 12 minutes a day into making your life better and your relationship better. So it's really a terrific opportunity, instead of, spending $2,000 doing therapy, although people, get a lot out of the individual therapy. Here's something that you can do for, a lot less expensive and be able to engage yourself in really looking at where your relationship is, what really goes on at stage 3 that really can be, an entree into what I call real lasting love that some people have never had. Some people had it and lost it. And we tell you how to really regain it or create it now in your life.
And is this a course that's going to be ongoing? Because obviously this podcast is going to air way past this Valentine's Day in 2021. Is this something they'll be able to sign up for? We'll put the link on the screen. Yeah. That's something they'll be able to sign up for anytime they hear this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be continually repeated because a lot of people in whatever time they're going to see this, they're going to go, yeah, that's interesting. So like all my courses, once they do them, there's a live component and then there's an ongoing component. So yeah, it'll be available whenever you see this, hear this. My website will be there. I'll be there in the background, and the course will be available anytime you're ready to take it.
Oh, that's great. That's very helpful. Sure.
So, yeah, I mean, I think, we're going to want to do this again because there's so much that men need to hear. We're also going to try and get some of our psycho friends together, and maybe we can do a little session with you on a podcast so people can kind of see the work that you do and how you can, really kind of help men figure this whole thing out. So you're a great resource, and you were kind of at the front of this wave because back when you started this, it was not a popular thing. It was not something that most men talked about.
He's the godfather of menopause. Exactly. The godfather of menopause.
So all the guys out there with crooked toupees and nose hairs growing out, that you can braid, and all the horrible things that you're doing, you need to think about your lives, figure out your passions, and go visit Dr. Diamond and sign up for some of his courses and get some of these books. I think, we're on parallel tracks in terms of what menopause.com is doing and what you're doing. We're obviously not professionals. We're just trying to get people engaged. But a lot of these folks are going to want the more professional outlook on these problems.
Well, I hope so. And the little secret that they'll find when they come to my website is, how I got to be a professional is taking all the problems that I had personally in my life, what I was going through, what I was challenged with. As I said, I was starting to go through this time of life, and I go, well, I got to figure it out for me. And then once I figure it out for me, maybe I can help figure it out for some other people. So it's, people call me the accessible professional because on the one hand, I've been through it. I know the territory. I've taken a lot of people, but I've also, done the studying, and I've done the reading, and I've done the research, and you can count on it being really state-of-the-art kind of help that isn't available everywhere.
Cool. That's great. Well, thank you so much.
We're grateful for this. And like I said, hopefully we can do more of these. I think it's going to be a huge benefit for our menopause.com family. So thank you very much for being with us today, Dr. Diamond.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure. It's good to be with you. It's fun, and things need to be fun. I mean, let's face it, you don't get through this period of life without a little bit of humor. So it's good to you guys tune into that. These are serious issues, but life is too serious to avoid some laughs about it. We gotta do that too.
That's right. True. That's true. Thanks again.
Cool. Thank you.
Hello, I'm John O'Hurley. Just imagine, if you will, discovering your podcast Shangri-La. Well, imagine no more Menopod podcasts from Menopause.com for men over 50. Podcasts about sex, sports, travel, entertainment, life, and so much more. Oh, yes, that enchanted podcast site you could only imagine is here now on your favorite podcast channels. Menopod podcasts from Menopause.com. Shangri-La indeed.